What's good in the hell, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing you another video. Today I'm bringing you a video on Uchuu Sentai Kyuranger episode 42. This episode is called My Father, the Universe, Lucky's Resolution. The episode overall was pretty good. It did a bunch of things with just progressing the plot even further forward. Now that we're in the Southern Crux system, we're now getting to the place that Homage is located, and all the major and the leftover villains that are alive are located. So it's pretty interesting, and the episode's pretty intense. So how it works is the episode basically begins with Lucky being conflicted about what he should do. Should he save his father? Should he save the universe? He didn't know. Even though in reality he should know that both should happen. But the thing is that he doesn't know how he can do both initially, and he's very conflicted with himself as to whether or not he can do it. So what does happen is that they do have to figure out what they're going to do, and they end up traveling into this location where they see this massive like smaller planet-like thing that they notice is very dark, and they don't know what it is at first. Eventually they do figure out what it is. We'll get into that. It's very important. But what does happen is that they have to finally go and fight in their final battle, as I keep on saying constantly, which is kind of weird because final battle in one sense, but also it's like there's still a good number of episodes before the season's done. Like there's still 6 more episodes, supposedly. That's what people are saying. It's supposed to be like 6 more episodes and then the season's done. And final battle usually implies this episode or something, but usually they expand it over a lot of time, so I get it. So how this works is basically the Kyurangers go down after being attacked by some consumer ships and everything, and they end up using at first, and this is the thing, they use a lot of different mechas this episode, and different combinations of mechas, and all sorts of different stuff is used. So for example, this episode they start off by using Kirino, Ryoteo, and Giganto-Ho. All 3 of those mechas are used, which is really cool. Especially since Kirino hasn't been used in a while. Lately it's just been Super Kirino. But that also has to do with the fact that, Caesar is taking care of Garu, because Garu is obviously hurt from the last episode. So that is something that's important, and that's why that is the case. And I appreciate the fact that they created a situation where Caesar isn't being used. So, so what does happen is that from here, they end up fighting and everything. And at one point, Medako sends a message to Tsurugi, basically saying that Shogun Homage wants to talk to him, and just him alone. So basically, he's told this, and he realizes that there must be a real reason why he wants to talk to me. So that's something that's kept in his mind. In the meantime, Lucky struggles to face his father eventually, who, while they're fighting and everything, he's conflicted with his own emotions, like he's struggling in battle, and several other things are occurring. And at one point, when they're in battle, they eventually end up being confronted by the combination of the 3 Vice Shogun, which is really interesting looking character, and basically, this character has all the powers and everything of Tetsu, Akibanba, and also Kakugura. So that's interesting. And he doesn't really... this creature doesn't really show its powers until the second time they fight each other, but it's interesting because they do fight each other twice. The initial time that they fight each other, it's interesting because they use Kyutamajin and Orion Battler. And at one point, what happens with the Orion Battler is suddenly Aslan, his father, jumps onto the Orion Battler ship, which I forgot to mention. This is just one small thing. Raptor and Naga are trying to figure out what they can do to deal with the ship and figuring out different things they can accomplish with piloting it and coming up with strategies to combat their foes and everything. So what does happen is that at one point Aslan breaks into the Orion Battler, destroys the Hyutama section, and comes in there, and then Lucky has to fight Aslan. Well, Raptor and Naga initially try to fight, but they actually get hurt and stopped. And then at one point, what happens is that as the fight's going on and everything, and they notice that like Lucky's not really fighting anymore. He's he's not fighting as the Orion Battler anymore. What happens is that Tsurugi decides to leave Gyutamajin and go back to the Orion Battler to help out Lucky while he's facing Aslan. And what happens is that he helps out him for a while and eventually tosses him off the ship. In the meantime, what does happen is that the transformation of Gyutamajin turns into Ryotei Kurano, which is interesting. So that's something to note, that they do show that version as well, and I actually appreciate that they actually show like all of them really. And that's even more so later on, because what happens is that following all this, we still see Lucky debating with himself. He doesn't know what to do, and Hammy tries to, tell him, because at one point he basically says that he wants to just save the universe and not save his father, and then like Hammy's like, you shouldn't have to choose, you should just be able to do it. We know that you'd be able to do this. And the thing is that like Tsurugi tries to make him think otherwise, and then eventually Lucky goes out, elsewhere on the ship, and in the meantime what happens is that Stinger goes to talk to him, which is interesting. Stinger goes to talk to him, which is really smart. I actually appreciate the fact that they decided to put Stinger into this, because again, Stinger had big focus in the 10s and the 20s, and this was kind of nice, because what happens is that he tries to remind him of how they didn't give up on him, and how they believed in Stinger back when he was dealing with his brother, and he should be able to do everything he can like he's always been able to do. Fight to the full, focus on your luck, stay strong, and rather than just giving up, because that's not how Lucky is. So that was cool. I actually appreciated that whole aspect a lot. What does happen is that he finally does show up and says that he's gonna save both of them, and he's gonna say his signature phrase, which is great. Showing a change in attitude, and eventually Garo does appear, which is nice. Garo is still injured, but is in much better shape, so he is able to fight. That's great. What does happen is they continue to deal with it, and they also have to figure out what they're going to do with that black spear. That black spear, we find out, by the way, is supposed to be a Planetium bomb. Planetium, if you remember, Planetium is like the energy of the universe and everything, and the different planets. So this bomb potentially is basically the culmination of all that Planetium energy that they've sucked up over all the universes and planets that they've traveled to, dark matter. And what it is that it's this one ball of energy that's been sucked up from all these planets, and if it goes off, it could destroy the entire universe. The question they even bring up is, why would they create such a thing if that also means that they're killing themselves? Which is still not answered exactly as to how that works. Obviously there'll be a real reason to how that works, because in reality, if it's just them, what's the point? Because if they're all destroyed, like, what's the advantage here? You know what I mean? Like, it seems a little silly. But what they do have is the dark hole the black hole Kyotama, which is kind of important, because that Kyotama can be used to suck up all the Planetium bomb energy and just blast it into a void of a black hole, so that it doesn't really affect the universe. It's kind of interesting how that works. So what does happen is that from there, they're trying to figure it out, how they're going to make that work. They eventually discuss it, and then in the meantime, they are attacked. The ship, which I forgot to mention, has a cloaking going on right now. The ship's cloaking disappears, and they have to fight the combination of the Vice Shogun again. So they actually use Super Kirino, and they use Ryotei and Giganta Ho, which is cool, and also Orion Battler. So they use that whole combination fighting the Vice Shogun. They initially try to do a major team attack with the 4 mechas, which doesn't really work because, not Tetsu, but Kakugra's ability, which allows him to take in the blast of energy and then reflect it back, is used. And then Akubamba's ability is used, which allows her to make one of the mechas fight the other so that they fight amongst each other. And so what happens is that like Orion Battler's used that way. And so then from there, they eventually end up using the cannon mode of the Orion ship to attack the Vice Shogun, while the other three mechas, can grab onto the sides and launch the Orion bow cannon, which is cool. So they do that, and eventually the combination of the Vice Shogun is destroyed, which is the final time we should be seeing the Vice Shogun in any form. So that's important, and at least that's what you would imagine. And what does happen is that from there, they end up returning back to the ship, happy that they destroyed the Vice Shogun combination. But then, what they notice is that Tsurugi isn't there. Tsurugi actually goes to where Don Armage is, because Don Armage contacted him. So the others are wondering what's going on. In the meantime, they also finally create the device that they're going to use, which is like a silver Saiza blaster that they're going to use to create the dark hole. And not the dark hole, the black hole. So what does happen is that from there, Tsurugi, we end up seeing, goes into the main location of Don Armage's base. We end up seeing the prototype champ being held by prototype champ holding on to Dr. Anton in his container, and Madako is leading Tsurugi to Don Armage. Eventually, when Tsurugi appears in the location of where Don Armage is, we end up seeing the shredded figure of Don Armage, and then the episode basically ends there with Don Armage about to speak to Tsurugi. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what's going to happen there. In the next episode, what we do see in the previews at least is that there's going to be some pretty interesting things that are going to occur. We're going to have a whole conversation that will happen between Tsurugi and Don Armage. We'll also have it where Lucky will use the sun and the moon modes of his the different forms that he has, which he hasn't been using those other forms in quite a while because he's had the Shishi Orion mode, which has been way more useful. So he's going to use like the sun mode and the moon mode and some other ones. They're also going to do a whole bunch of other things that they haven't done in a while, which is kind of cool, and I appreciate that. And also it looks like Madako might be biting the dust next episode, which is kind of interesting because, again, we're getting towards the very end, so there isn't going to be any more minor villains. It's going to be all major villain destructions from now on, pretty much. You would imagine. So it should be interesting to see how that will work out. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. What I do know, supposedly, is that episode 43 is supposed to actually be where, what might be happening, and I've heard this, is that apparently Don Armage might be revealing his, true identity, because, the identity that we've seen him as, which is, his more monstrous form, he might have another form. We don't know, but that's what we've heard. That's what I have heard. Apparently, that's what might be happening with the whole conversation. That's going to happen, and then we're going to find out more information about Don Armage, which should be really, really interesting to see. I mean, the fact that Tsurugi is confronting Don Armage head to head, that's a pretty big deal. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where that will go. I'd love to know your opinions. Are you guys looking forward to seeing this next episode? Again, we're getting very close to the end of the season. Lupin Ranger versus Power Ranger will be coming shortly after that, so that's something to look forward to. I'd love to know your opinions. Are you guys looking forward to that? I love to know your guys' opinions also. Have you been enjoying Kyuranger? I personally have. Lately, it's been a little bit slower just because there's been they're getting into the main action, and it's sort of it's that point in the season where, it's beginning to slow down, and well, not slow down, it's starting to get more exciting, but it's sort of it's getting towards the end. So there's a certain feel that comes across with most seasons where, you start to feel okay, I've seen this a lot, So I'd love to know your opinions. Are you guys enjoying this? Please remember to comment, subscribe. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So until then, guys, I'm Crazy Samurai 71, and bye, guys.